Good morning, my people. Welcome to Exploring the Ka YouTube channel. And these are the Sun Behind the Sun Chronicles, where I do my sunrise walks and discuss various life experiences and various research and work that I've been doing regarding my life experiences and my cosmic journey, and where I and we all fit in the collective consciousness of humanity and our place in nature and the universe. This is why we explore the Ka and the Sun Behind the Sun Chronicles. Unfortunately, last night we were supposed to have the Space Water podcast with our guest Jorge Martin from Puerto Rico, but everybody gives some warm, get well vibes to Jorge Martin. He's dealing with some heavy asthma right now that he developed out of nowhere, and he's in his 60s now, and he's been a crusader for the truth in the UFO community and various mysteries that have to do with Puerto Rico since the 80s. I've known about him since the late 80s myself, and I've interviewed Jorge Martin maybe 5, 6, 7 times over the years. He's a friend of mine from Puerto Rico. We've met before. Yeah, I remember first finding out about Jorge when he was on Unsolved Mysteries in the late 80s, talking about the chupacabra of Puerto Rico, right? And yeah, it just so happens that we ended up meeting in life later on, and he's one of my favorite guests to have on over the years, Jorge. And his son was a Puerto Rican police officer, and he retired in the 90s, and partly because of the incredible encounter he had while on duty at the police station in Puerto Rico. And Jorge reported this amazing testimony of his son on our show. I might even have the copy of it here on YouTube, the audio of it. And his son was a Puerto Rican police officer, so he literally had no beneficial reason, no reason at all to report the encounter that he had. And the topic that we're going to discuss this morning is my own encounter. So it's my own testimony. But first, let me mention what happened to Jorge Martin's son while on duty as an officer in Puerto Rico. And this testimony was done on my radio show years back. And basically, Jorge Martin, his son, was an officer on duty in Puerto Rico I think this was in the mid to late 90s when this happened. And it was nighttime, and they heard a crash on top of the station. They were at the station. They heard a crash on top of the roof. So they grabbed their flashlights and their pistola. They grabbed their guns and their flashlights, and they run up to the top of the roof. Now, what they find on top of the roof shocked them to their core, gave them PTSD, dramatized them to their cores. I'm sure still to this very day, if any of them are still alive, I think Jorge Martin's son is still alive, but he doesn't talk about this. His son, his father, has been sharing this on radio shows and stuff over the years, and he doesn't like to talk about it that much anymore, the father. In fact, I made him bring it up on 3 separate occasions over the years on radio shows, because I had him on one radio show and I went through a different network, and I said, it'd be good to have him on this network. And And then, he's kindly shared the story 3 times with me over the years on different platforms, and even has given his amazing artistic rendition of the experience. And what happened with his son is incredible. So they hear this crash on top of the police station. They grab their flashlights and their guns. They run to the top of the police station on the roof, and what they find is just incredible. They see standing in front of them is an 8 foot, roughly about 8 foot, what they can only describe as a freaking gargoyle that's 8 foot. It was this tall, 8 foot type reptilian humanoid that had, like, they called it like a saucerian, like almost like a dinosaur type looking skin with wings. It looked a face like a gargoyle. It had wings, and it had dropped in front of him a cat that it was chewing on. So they assumed that he picked up roadkill and started eating. I don't think so. I think it caught that cat and started eating it and went to the top of the roof to eat it, right? And it had dropped a cat in front of it, and the cat was half chewed on. And when they looked at this being, they didn't even remember how long they were staring at it for, because they became entranced by the glowing red eyes. And we've heard this type of story before, like in the Mothman story, but the Mothman, it wasn't a reptilian type being that was flying around. It was more of a bird-like, moth-like creature. Hence, the Mothman. But this was a reptilian type gargoyle creature that landed on top of the Puerto Rican police station. It was reported by the police officers about what happened. And I'm not sure if it was the reason why Jorge Martin's son was forced to retire or retired early, but he left the police station and retired at a young age. And I mean, think about this. They said it had glowing red eyes, and then it flew off, right? And so, in my opinion about the cat thing, I don't think it was roadkill that it picked up at all. I think it caught that, and cats are fast, right? Very agile. I think it came from another dimension. And there's a lot going on in Puerto Rico. Even in South America, I mean, we have the South Atlantic anomaly, where our magnetic shield is weakened. And there's literally a bridge from the sun to Earth. Things can come from the portal of the sun. Plasma doorways open up from other dimensions, other Earth-like dimensions, other dimensions associated with Earth at different places, different times, different timelines, maybe even, right? All of this it seems to be some sort of vortex in Puerto Rico and the El Yunque rainforest as well. People have seen portals, swirling vortexes open up in the jungle and in the sky and in the water all around El Yunque rainforest in Puerto Rico that Jorge has reported on. And they've seen various flying creatures coming out of these swirling vortexes as well, similar to pterodactyls, similar to gargoyles. And this is not a one-off at the police station. This has been reported in Puerto Rico and throughout the world, in fact, but very highly concentrated around the El Yunque rainforest. And the military of the United States has taken control over various areas of this rainforest and of Puerto Rico for a reason. I call it Stargate Puerto Rico. It's a little hidden secret of the United States. Okay, I'll go to the Mystical Spiral store after this. I'll go to it, and I'll actually give you those 2 little pens for the price. I'll give you the gift. I'll give you those 2 little ones that I made. And so I'm gonna share experience that I really don't like talking about that much because I really don't have that many answers for you. What I can tell you is the facts that I remember, which are still a little hazy because of what I went through and what happened to me afterwards, and how the Long Beach Police Department in Los Angeles at the time was aware of the event that transpired. I was given over to the military, and the military was aware of the event that transpired. They tried taking my blood and doing all this stuff against my will, even. And the Long Beach Police Department willingly gave me over to another agency, a military agency. And there was no questions involved. It was just straight taking me and doing tests against my will. And this happened over 20, way over 20 years ago now. It happened in 2002. So I've had a lot of time to think about it. I've had a lot of time to change my life, and now to have protection against certain things to transpire. But basically, I was spiritually open. And during that time of my life, I was traveling wherever the world took me spiritually. And I'm a musician and a songwriter. So I literally was living for like almost 3 years as a street musician, all day long, playing on the streets of Los Angeles. And then me and three other people that were very close friends of mine, we had our own little apartment that we lived in. The four of us were sharing it. And it was hard living, but it was free. I literally just went where the world took me. I traveled across the United States on a bus several times. And I learned how to become be able to do music and freestyling lyrically and musically off the jump really well. And martial arts actually helped me with that, because on martial arts and competing in Muay Thai like I did, and even in wrestling and kickboxing, you have to be able to think on the fly and also think ahead as well. And this is the same thing with being a musician, where you're just freestyling, right? You're playing right off the cuff. And, it's just, you learn how to read people very well as well. And other senses start to become alive that you weren't aware that you had, right? And how we can even see into the future in certain ways as well. Certain senses that we have. And I had people have heard my experience when I went out to Long Beach, California. It was literally on a whim. I told my mom I was going to 7-Eleven, and I ended up instead getting on a bus and going from New York City to Long Beach in California. I would have needed a boat to go any further. I went literally to one harbor to the other harbor. So I was born inside the amniotic sac. I was born hypersensitive as well. People born this way are looked at as being born as call bearers or born behind the veil. Experienced a lot of sixth sense or ESP. And then in 1987, when I was 9 years old, I had a near-death experience that also enhanced and changed my senses, right, in good and bad ways. Just made me more hypersensitive to certain things. And it took me down many paths, first to try to avoid what I was feeling and sensing. I tried to run from it for many years when I was a teenager, and I wanted just to fit in instead of, feeling and sensing all these other things that I was feeling and sensing that other people couldn't identify with, at least. And so that led me down a whole nother path that, I had to go to war with myself and my ego and my different patterns that you develop throughout your life, to find out who you really are and what your journey is. And, I literally just had to leave the area that I grew up in, that I was comfortable in, my family, everything, and just follow where my spirit was taking me. And when I went out to Long Beach, California, I didn't realize it's literally the area that I was always hanging out in. I was living on 4th and Cedar, and I was always hanging out between like 5th Street and down to 1st Street, First and Golden, where the Cesar Chavez Park is. And I was always hanging and playing in my music in the Cesar Chavez Park, from the Lincoln Park to the Cesar Chavez Park, from like 5th Street and Long Beach Boulevard down to Golden Boulevard, First and Golden, right? And I didn't know that this area is on the 33rd parallel, right? And the 33rd parallel that goes across the earth. I mean, it also goes into Lebanon, Mount Hermon in Lebanon, where the fallen angels came down in the Book of Enoch, all right? So when I went out to California, it was like I was being just led out there. Something just came inside of me to have this impulse to just go. I didn't have nobody out there, nothing, no family, no nothing. And I just went with the clothes on my back and my acoustic guitar. And like $50 left in my pocket after I bought the bus ticket, which was gone. I spent it on the way out there just trying to eat in the 3 nights and 4 days bus ride. And I was broke by the time I got to Vegas, So, and that was a whole nother experience I had in Vegas at the Golden Nugget Casino, where I saw this tall white type being at 3 o'clock in the morning. That was a whole nother experience. It was like the whole trip I was guided to have certain encounters. And then when I got into Long Beach, I became like a local regular. I was playing my music on the streets all day, running around all night, certain stores I was doing favors for and passing out flyers and this and that, and hanging out in front of the stores to get people to come in while I would play my music. So like I was known in the area. And then I started having a lot of really incredible Kundalini awakening type experiences, right? And there came a point where it was like 3 days in a row I was having these like life altering spiritual Kundalini activating experiences, ecstasies type, and no drugs were involved. I was completely sober. I had completely changed my whole life, and no drugs were involved at all. And the first night had to do with me basically like smelling my dead grandmother's perfume in the alleyway and this and that. And I talked about the story. The next night was that story with the homeless man, where all of a sudden he was dressed up nice and he came to me while I was playing guitar and all this stuff. It was like he basically the old story of a contract for your soul. This guy offers me basically anything I've ever wanted. All I have to do is say yes. And I looked him in the eyes and I said, "Sir, thank you, but no thank you." And it was like this weird, mysterious encounter. And the very next couple of days was very mysterious as well. I was having all of these like ghostly type experiences throughout downtown Long Beach. And at the time, it was right around winter solstice. It was Christmas time. And the weird thing too is they were filming during the time I was out there between 2001 and 2003. They filmed a couple of movies in that area. One was called Bad Santa. They filmed a couple of scenes right there where I was living on the corner. And then I had this experience where I was shown John Ritter's death the night before it happened. And I was talking about it to all my roommates and stuff, and they were like, "Well, shut up about it." Like I was having this vision with these 3 little flame-headed beings, and they were going, "Come and knock on my door. We're waiting for you." And I was seeing it in my head, in my mind's eye, all night, in like a dull reddish neon, right? Like like when you close your eyes and you have that reddish overlay of light. It was coming out of that reddish overlay in a specific shape of these flame-headed beings with this weird vexing face on, and they were chanting, "Come on, knock on my door, we're waiting for you." The very next day we found out that John Ritter died. And we were all like on watching it on TV, like, bro, what the hell is wrong? They were like scared of me for a second. And I was getting that coming to me like the whole day before. And, I have no connection to John Ritter. I used to watch Three's Company and stuff when I was younger, but it's very weird, right? And I've had these type of premonitions a few times in my life where I saw my friend James, my best friend James, who was my roommate at the time, one of my roommates at the time. I saw his death 20 years before it happened. He died in 2018, and I saw it in like 2001, 2002, and it freaked me out because when I saw it in this vision, this dream vision woke me up in a cold sweat, and I thought it was going to happen the very next day, and I freaked him out about it. But that him drowning, I thought that was going to happen in Long Beach, actually happened instead in 2018 in Arkansas, where he got tased by the police and he drowned in a creek in Arkansas. My friend James Baez. And I thought this was going to happen in Long Beach. Yeah, so you never know with time. I have proof of this, man. I mean, all my friends at the time, Javon, all these guys that were friends with James, they could tell you, man. I went searching for him that day because he wasn't home. He hadn't come home like in 2 days. He was at this guy Tito's house partying. And I think they were doing like crystal meth and all types of shit. So like I rescued him out of that situation at that house, and I thought maybe I saved his life that night. Maybe that was gonna happen 20 years before, but because I got him out of that situation, it happened later on. Yeah, I'm not asking for people to believe me either. I'm glad you believe me, but this is the truth. It gave me PTSD. That dream about him drowning and his whole body becoming frozen and he can't breathe and he's gasping for air and searching and reaching up for the surface of the water. That gave me PTSD. It was so real, so vivid, more real than this reality can ever feel. So I woke up out of that dream, cold sweating. I got up out of the house and I went searching for James. And it took me like hours and hours to find him finally. And I stayed by his side for like weeks after that because I was so worried that he was going to die. And this ended up happening in Arkansas. You guys can look it up. James Valles, Valles, died in Richland Creek. He was missing actually for 2 weeks after he fell in the creek. Cops say he jumped in, but I know he was murdered by those cops. I know the story too because James was bisexual, and I didn't even know that he was part gay till like 3 months of me being best friends with him because he had girlfriends too. But it didn't matter, right? We still stayed very close after I moved back to New York, and then he moved back from California back to his hometown in Arkansas. But when he moved back to Arkansas in this small little hometown, and he was used to growing up because his parents divorced at a young age, and his father went to go live in California. So like he went to go live with his father from the time that he was in middle school and high school. And then after, high school in his later 20s, early and 30s, he was in his like later 30s when he died. You can't come back to a small town in Arkansas and live like you were living in California. It just doesn't work. The cops notice you very, very quick. And, you can't act the same in that small town, unfortunately, right? So there was this one cop in Arkansas. He's still a cop. Now, I'm not going to say his name, but you could find it if you do the research. Had to do with James's death. He's an in-the-closet homosexual, and he frequents gay areas outside of the community that he's a cop in, like gay bars and stuff like that. And James knew him from one of these bars. So this cop started pulling James over frequently and trying to get, like, he would find drugs on James or something on James, weed or whatever, and that's illegal in Arkansas. And he would be like, well, blow me, and or something like, he would say something like this, and I won't charge you for the drugs. So James was like, no, just charge me, arrest me. So James got arrested for having drugs on him a couple of times. And this cop he told me privately, was trying to push up on him. And instead of like going along with the cop, he just ended up getting arrested and saying, fucking charge me then, dude. I'm not doing shit with you. Right? So this was the same cop that was involved in his death. And the cop's story was that he saw, it was raining at night. It was after midnight. and he saw a car parked alongside the bridge. And when he stopped, he heard people talking underneath the bridge area there, where Richland Creek is. And then, so it was James's sister's car that he had at the time. And he said that when he went to go underneath there was two people smoking marijuana, and one took off and ran, and he never got him. The other guy was James, and James like froze for a second. He said that he tased him, and then James rolled on the ground and broke the tasers, and then took off and jumped off the bridge area into Richland Creek. Now, this was wintertime. He was wearing supposedly flip-flops, and 60 yards into the creek, right? So I don't think that's happening. And then when they finally found his body, he had a broken nose and face, broken wrist, and defensive wounds. He was beaten up and thrown in the lake. No doubt in my mind. They didn't find his body for 2 weeks. The cops said he ran and jumped in the lake to get away from them. First of all, he would never jump 60 yards into a frozen, almost not frozen, but a freezing cold creek to get away a weed charge. Okay? Bullshit. His family doesn't have enough money for investigation, and nobody contested it. So, unfortunately, and he was cremated right away. So there's nothing to be done. It's unfortunate, but I saw this happen to him many, many years before. It was the most frightening thing. All right, and what I saw was him reaching for the surface, and the fear, and the confusion. That's what I felt. And when I had this experience in the park, he was the one that found me. He was the one that was looking for me when I was missing. Like the morning that I had this experience on the 33rd parallel in the Cesar Chavez Park, I haven't talked about this in years. I stopped talking about it because, I'm doing really important work, and talking about an experience like this takes away from the validity of my work. People think you're completely nuts. And if they think you're completely nuts about something that you've experienced, and they might think you might be making it up or whatever they might be thinking, who knows, who cares? But that they associate with your work. And if they think you're nuts in one area, then you're nuts in all areas. Right? So I stopped talking about it. I talk about my near-death experience and things like that because those are more accepted. But I stopped talking about these experiences so much. When I first came out, a lot of podcasts and radio shows, they wanted to hear these stories because they're interesting and they're mind-blowing and they're fantastic, right? They're all this, and they're science fiction sounding and all of this, right? Because I've had decades now to think about some of them and use some references, but at the time, they were very traumatic, and I don't like talking about them that much because I don't really have much answers or, anything else to add besides my own view of what transpired, which people can chalk up to a hallucination. They can chalk up to a fabrication. They could chalk it up to anything. But when I do my research and my work and my copper devices, and those are something tangible that can't be disputed, right? So yeah, this experience was intense. That morning I woke up, I had talked to one of my roommates, Jane. He was my best friend at the time, and still to this day is the best friend I ever had. And we're like brothers, man. We looked similar as well. I was able to use this guy, allegedly used his passport and his ID, and was able to pass for him, not even contested, just showed it. Right? So we looked alike. We were similar ages. He was born 3 years after. He's born 81, I think. I'm born 78. But we looked similar as well, right? So when it comes to this experience, it's almost like it was written in the fabric of time. I woke up that morning feeling different. And I made plans with my friend James to meet at the Cesar Chavez Park about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. And he was going to help me pass out flyers for the No Regrets store. There was this store called No Regrets. And the owners of the store at the time, they're still in the same band called Heavenly Trip to Hell. They're well known in the downtown Long Beach area. And I used to play my music in front of the store there. They had actually 3 storefronts at the time. They don't have any now. Now it's just online. But they had 3 storefronts in Long Beach at the time. The one that I used to chill at was the one on 5th and Pine, because I lived one street over, 4th and Cedar. Um, and 5th and Pine is really well-known area in downtown Long Beach area. It's got all nice restaurants and different stuff there, right in the middle of the ghetto too. Um, so I used to hang out in front of 5th and Pine and play my music there during the day. And because a lot of stores, I didn't have a vending license, and a lot of stores would call the police on you if they didn't like you and whatever. So like there was a few places I got chased out of by playing my music during the day, like Starbucks and stuff like that. Sometimes Starbucks was cool, and people working there would actually bring me out like cups of water and stuff like that while I'm playing. But because I don't drink coffee, I drink tea. Um, but a lot of times I would get chased away from these places because people are eating lunch out there, and sometimes they don't want to be forced to hear music that the restaurant didn't hire. So No Regrets and a couple other places were cool with me playing during the day, and then I would do favors for them, like pass out flyers. Shit, I even worked, inside the store a few times for No Regrets. But so my friend James had made plans with me because we were gonna go take the red line or whatever it's called. I forget what it's called now over there. We were gonna take it into Los Angeles, because it's in Long Beach is in Los Angeles, but it's its own little area inside Los Angeles. So we were gonna take it to actually LA, to like into like the main strip, and probably even to West Hollywood and those places, which is more predominantly gay and funky area. But we were gonna go pass out flyers in those areas that day. So he was gonna meet me at the park around 10:30, 11 o'clock. We were gonna get some food and then go. So something happened that morning where I woke up super early, and I went to the park at like right around sunrise, and I had this like certain energy about me that morning. I remember literally, that day. I remember that morning very well because of what transpired. I remember putting on my clothes and looking in that, those long mirrors that are like lengthwise where you could see your whole body in the mirror. So I was getting dressed, and I remember putting on my clothes that morning, and I was putting on my clothes, my gear. I used to wear this armband at the time, and I was putting everything on like it was a tribal warrior outfit, that I was getting ready for tribal war or something like that. Almost like I was putting on war paint when I was putting on my clothes, pulling up my socks and things like that. It was like I was putting on tribal war paint. It was such a weird feeling that I can't even describe. And I had headphones on, and the music in my headphones was like the anthem to my tribal war that I was about to go into. And literally, I had this mindset as I was walking down the street to Cesar Chavez Park. I was looking up at the sky with my eyes basically almost like rolling back, doing sun yoga. My eyes were rolling back in my head as I was staring at the sun as it was rising, and I was walking down the street. Literally, I remember, and I was doing my own version of sun yoga. And at the rising sun, I had my eyes rolled back, and I was staring towards the middle of my third eye with my rolled back eyes. And at the sun, up at the sun. Right? And the sky was like red. And they always say, red skies at night, sailors delight. Red skies in the morning, sailors take warning. And I was about to take some cosmic sail into the cosmic waters. Seriously. And I walked straight down to the park like I was marching into tribal war. And that's how it felt. I knew something was about to transpire. And as I walked into the park, there were people, people gather in that park, homeless people, kids. Across the street from the park is a predominantly like Filipino, I think they are, community. And there's a whole condo of like 98% of the people that live in that building is like either like Polynesian or like, I don't know if they're Samoan or Filipino. There's like a mix of of them all that live in that one building. So they like congregate in front of that and in that park a lot. And even early morning, there people are out there, and there were people in the park. And it was like around sunrise. The sun was arising, and there were some people in the park as I was walking in it, and I just walked past them like like they didn't exist, right? And the thing is, as I was walking down, this is the most craziest part. Well, no, not the most craziest part, but this was the part that makes me even sound crazy. But as I was walking down to the park, I was going through this internal spiritual battle where I was looking at my clothes. After I told you I put on my clothes like it was a warrior outfit, well, as I'm walking down to the park, I had my eyes rolling back for a little while as I was walking, right? But then as I came to the park, right before I walked in, I started looking down at my body and at my clothes, and I started going through like a spiritual internal battle with myself. And I was like, you know what? I don't deserve these clothes. I don't deserve these shoes. I kicked off my shoes. I was like, these are not even my pants. I borrowed them from my friend. I took off my pants. I was just basically like wearing my little shorts that I had on underneath my jeans. And I don't even remember if I took those off as well. But I was basically naked when I walked in that park. I had taken off my clothes. I was barefoot, everything, right? And I, I walked into the park, and I walked around the park where there's this like, it's made in this Fibonacci spiral, like a lot of the park, and there's poems written around the spiral. It's a very spiritual park. They have tarot cards on the seats, right? Actually, it's not tarot cards. It's the Mexican game called the Loteria, where it has like very similar tarot card symbolism, right? They have like the hand with the eye in it, the Diablito. They have all different tarot cards like inside of the Loteria of the Mexican game that they play. One of those cards are like everywhere, all over the benches. So I walked around into that area, and very similar to my near-death experience when I was younger, that I saw like hovering above Earth, this like shimmering wave. Like on a hot summer day when you see this like shimmering wave in the air, like you can see the heat. Almost like too, like when you're pouring gasoline, sometimes you can see like this shimmering wave in the air, and it looks like water moving in the air, like a wave of water moving in the air, but it's like a mirage, it's not almost similar to like what a mirage looks like, but it's like a shimmering wave of heat or something like that. It's like a shimmering wave in the air. I saw this in the park, in front of me, like a shimmering wave in the outline of my body, and intuitively I was drawn into it, like walk right into it. And this is similar to what happened in my near-death experience. Decades later, I realized that it was plasma, some type of plasma that I was in. And I was in a region of the magnetosphere when I had my near-death experience, inside a swirling vortex of plasma, right? And inside a region of the magnetosphere. Egyptians call it the Duat. Hebrews call it the many chambers of Gehenna, like Sheol and things like that. Hades, all the way down to the mythologies about you got to pay the ferryman to cross the plasma river Styx, right? It's plasma waters, eloquently, poetically put, right? And so it was a shimmering wave in the air, a plasma portal, right? And I literally was drawn into it. And as I was drawn into it, I felt, and it felt like I was going to die. It felt like I was going to get stuck like that forever if I didn't shake my head or shake my way out of it. But I couldn't. It paralyzed me. I couldn't scream for help. I couldn't shake my head. I couldn't scream my way out of it. Like when I used to try to fight off out-of-body experiences that I didn't know were coming on when I was younger, right? Where you think you're having some sort of neurological issue, but actually you're going out of body and you're fighting it, right? And it's the same thing with sleep paralysis sometimes. Like you feel like if you're going to get stuck like that forever or you're going to die, and you got to like scream your way out of it, like, "Rah!" You're like paralyzed, stuck in it, right? Like your brain is frozen and you got to shake it and scream out of it. Well, I was completely frozen by this energy that I was getting drawn into. And when I stopped fighting it, I gave into it. I gave into the light, right? And all of a sudden, the warmth and serenity, and I hit a wall of peace. That vibrating energy, that I'm making this sound very long. It was a split second. That vibrating energy that I was drawn into, I hit a freaking wall of serenity and warmth and peace. I had my eyes clenched tight during this whole time. I opened my eyes, and what I felt was more alive than the reality I previously just left. It was more vivid. It was more intense. It was more real than this reality, right? When I opened my eyes, I felt already a more vivid experience in this reality that I was now in. It was more alive. And in front of me looked like a wheat field, literally a wheat field, right? It was wheat, like, like tall wheat. And I went to separate the wheat out of the way so I can walk through it. And when I went to go separate it, it completely disappeared from both sides of me, the left and the right, although it never touched my hand. It just disappeared. And then in front of me was the same park I just left, the same freaking park I just left. But now it was completely empty, but it felt more alive, more vivid. But it was the same exact park that I just was in previously. But now it's completely empty and desolate, but it felt more awake and alive. So I'm walking very slowly around this empty park and like, what the hell is going on? I'm still in the same park, and I'm thinking about like the wheat that I just like tried to get out of. It was weird, right? And it was, yeah, it was like a harvest of wheat, like a wheat field. And when I went to move it, it just disappeared. And then that same park was there, right? The same exact park. And this is the part where I saw what I call now the Fae. You could call them aliens. You can call them interdimensional beings. You can call them elves. You can call them fairies, dwarves, whatever you want to call them. They've been talked about through time. And so I walked around the edge of they have like this building in the park where they have like these after school programs for people and all this stuff going on. So I walked around that edge of that building there, and on the side of that building towards the back of the park, they have all these bolted down seats where people play like spades and dominoes and stuff like that, right? Where it's like, four seats to each table, but they're like bolted down seats, right? And I walked around the back of the park, and there's these bolted down seats there that, and I realized I'm not alone in this park anymore. At each of these tables, there's like a group of these tables. I don't know how many of these tables there are. There's between 5 and 10 of these tables. And they all have four bolted down seats around the table where, like I said, people be playing dominoes and spades and different things there. So at the table, there was groups of four at each table. All the seats were taken up at each table. Identical looking beings. I never saw them standing up, so I can only estimate their height, but they were between 4 and maybe 4.5 feet tall, right? Small, little 10-year-old size, 8 to 10-year-old height size beings. Exactly alike. Completely identical. No, I was totally sober. So I'm trying to tell you guys, I wasn't on any. At the time, I was only, I had cleaned my whole life up. Yeah, at certain times in my life when I was younger, I'm 46 now, so it's been over 20 years since I've done anything but weed. But when I was younger, I did do different things. But at this time, I had cleaned my life up, completely cleaned my life up. And I was like a crusader for people getting off the streets and helping people get their lives together, right? I was like going through a spiritual change in my life. I had just done ayahuasca the year before. And this wasn't when ayahuasca was popular. We went to Peru, me and my friends, right? So this was like, I had changed my whole life, and I was just spiritually open to the forces around me, right? And these beings, whether they were in the dimension of my mind or where they were in some other reality, however you want to see it. I had missing time where I was gone for a day and a half of missing time for just a couple of minute experience. I'm making it seem long, but it was just a minute or two that I was in the park during this, right? And I was gone for a day and a half. So let me explain first that these beings, when I saw them, it's imprinted in my mind, and I was given some sort of vision of the future. Like, this wasn't for nothing. This wasn't just for me to just waltz in the park one day. I was given a vision, and I've talked about this, and it gave me PTSD. Still to this very day, I wake up sweating from the nightmares I have about this vision. So, and in 2018, I shared that I felt like some of that vision was about to happen with the masks and everything. And I talked about this in 2018, a year before we had this freaking craziness on the planet. I was talking about having visions of seeing people in masks and people fighting over food and a green comet that was coming and all this. I have videos on YouTube. Go look up my channel, A Green Comet and Plagues and the Apocalypse Coming. I was doing it in September of 2018. You know, telling people I was getting these cold sweat dreams of people in masks everywhere fighting. Right? So I'm not looking for people to believe me. I'm giving you a testimony of what I experienced. Um, so these beings, they were exactly alike. They had little knobs on their heads, like little knobs above their eyebrow area, on their forehead. They had what's called that widow's peak. They didn't have hair. They had this mold, plastered down blackness that looked like that. It was like not hair, but like almost like a helmet type thing. But looked like hair in a way, but it was plastered down. And they had a pronounced widow's peak that came to a pronounced point, like almost like a Dracula. You know those old portrayals of Dracula where he has like uh, a deep the hairline goes back, like, you know, and he has a pronounced widow's peak point that comes down. They had a pronounced widow's peak point that came down right between their eyes area, came down. And they had these little knobs right here and a very white face with a smile that didn't move, like a Joker's type smile that didn't move, right? And they never said anything with their mouths. It was telepathic, right? Their mouths didn't move. It was like a fake smile type thing. It was very creepy, right? But they were all, and they had this very tight skin type wrapping over them that I can't even remember the colors of it. Maybe it was a reddish or yellowish or light color. I don't even remember because I was just looking at their faces the whole time, and I was stuck in that. And then they were all sitting in groups of 4 at these tables, right? And I hate telling the story because it makes you sound crazy even telling it, right? And it takes away from my work that I'm doing now. But I feel like people need to hear it again because I haven't told it in a very long time. And so I came to the table that was closest to me with these 4 at it, and the one that had its back in front of me, I looked over his shoulder to see what they were all doing, these groups of 4, and it looked like they were playing cards. But what he was holding, it was as thin, and this was in 2001, it was near Christmas time, solstice time of 2002, the year after the World Trade Center. So we didn't have cell phones and tablets and things the way that we do now. It was a little different then, right? I mean, so what the thing was holding was as thin as a playing card and about the size of a playing card, thin like that, very thin like that. But when I looked in the middle of it, there was a diamond shape type thing it was in the middle of the card was a diamond shape, but in the middle of that was like a virtual reality experience screen. It wasn't really a screen. It was vision. It was something. It was like a movie being played, but the movie was connected to me telepathically, to my senses, it made me feel what I was seeing. and understand it. Deeper understanding was connected to my nervous system, like, and my visions, right? So what I first was seeing in the middle of that diamond on that little thing, right, was, I mean, it was about my life first, right? It was things, lies that I've told, things that I've done wrong, things throughout my whole life that nobody could possibly know. And then I heard in my head, it's not all about me. It's not all about me. And then I started saying it out loud. I remember saying it. It's not all about me. It's not all about me. And I looked away from the screen as I was saying this. And then I looked back into that diamond again. And now I saw things on a deeper level, past my ego. And I saw, I think, ancient cataclysms on this planet, right? And then I saw our civilization, but maybe more in the future, I think. You know, it wasn't giving me a blueprint, but I saw human being civilization arising. I saw other things falling and crumbling. And then I saw the most disgusting, violent acts on human, and just the most PTSD type activity transpiring from our own demise, and we were causing our own demise. Just a vivid experience that gave me PTSD, the visions and the scene, the experience. I can't even describe it in the correct way, but it's apocalyptic type visions of from our own actions. And we brought it on. It was our own vibration that was making the streams of cosmic light that comes down from all suns and stars. This is what I was showing, like beams of light, streams of light, streams of information coming from suns and stars that were evolving humanity, but it was according to our own vibration. It was what we were sending out, right? All of our intentions, our greed, our what we call out for, right? Whether it's prayers, mantras, whether it's what we think about all day, what the vibration coming out of us, that is absorb our emanations, just like we absorb the emanations from the sun, right? Our emanations that come out of us is absorbed by the suns and the stars out there as well. And then they alter it with their own vibration and send down those light codes and alter us according to what our souls are calling for it to be. According to, we get evolved accordingly from our own vibration. What we project out, we get evolved according to those projections. And this is what I was shown. And I was shown by, a certain year, we're going to have bacterias and all sorts of things taking on frightening new form. We're losing ourselves. We're losing ourselves. The weird thing is, too, what took me out of this experience is that I was supposed to meet my friend James in the park at a certain time. Well, that time came up, and he couldn't find me in the park. He said he was even calling out my name because he felt like I was there somewhere, like sleeping or sitting somewhere, and he just didn't see me. He said he was even calling out my name, but he couldn't find me. Now, I think his calling is what snapped me out of that experience and brought me back out. Because when I literally was looking at this traumatic PTSD type vision I was getting, and I got pulled out of it, like sucked out of it. And the next thing I knew, I'm sitting there naked in the park, standing there, and there's people around me, and a day and a half had passed. I didn't know it at the time, but I had lost time. There was people playing in the park. I had grabbed a drink from some kid and started downing it because I was like so dehydrated. I felt like I was going to die. I had lost like 10 pounds, right? I barely made it out of that park alive, and I wandered to the alleyway behind that park, and I thought as I was wandering into the alleyway behind the park, I felt like I was having this like ecstasy kundalini experience, thinking about things, and I thought I was having an orgasm, right? I felt it. But in actuality, I was pissing myself as well. I had peed all over myself, pissing myself as I'm walking down the street, right? And yeah, no drugs were involved. I literally was pissing myself. And I walked into the alleyway and I found a dumpster and I hid along, not in it, but, on the side of it. And I literally was sitting there with my arms around my knees, rocking back and forth. And I can remember rocking back and forth until my friend James found me, because we literally lived like a street up. So he was walking through the alleyway to go to my friend Rocky's house, who lived in that alleyway. And he saw me rocking there, and he had to go get me clothes, fresh clothes and everything. He was like, bro, I've been looking for you for like over a day. Because that was like on a Friday. He didn't find me until like either Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. I forget now. It was like either Saturday afternoon. So I had lost like a day or more's time just from that 2 minute experience in the park that I made sound very long, because I tried to explain it as best as I could. Yeah, James was the band, dude. James was the man. I miss him so much. He was like, we were soul brothers, right? We were meant to be in each other's paths. Even even though he died in 2018, his mother in Arkansas, we still talk every month. Um, you know, we were best friends. It's incredible. Yeah, we all have very similar, incredible stories in our own lives, right? I'm not, and nothing different about me. Just sometimes because of our choices in life, we don't go down certain paths, and some of us don't see or feel or follow those spiritual signs that get put in our paths. Those spiritual signs are just paths to a door, and those doors that we gotta find that door and open it ourselves. We just get shown the path to the door. And you can't get, thank you can't get knowledge through scholarship alone. Knowledge has to get achieved through life's experiences, and that's how you get wisdom. Scholarship alone will not bring you wisdom of the universe and of nature. You have to go out and live your life and experience nature and the universe, and then things get revealed to you. You have to go to war for the knowledge. It's not just handed to you because you have an interest. You have to go to war for it. And then during that war, you get polarized towards one side or the other. And depending on which side you choose, that information will be altered. The vibration of that information will be altered. The source is very same, but the application gets changed depending on your vibration. That's why you can read manuscripts when it comes to adepts from different perspectives, because some people have the negative vibe twist to it all, the greed and materialism vibe, the asura vibe, right? Zoroastrianism is like this. Zoroastrianism from the Persians is about the asuric vibe. It's about greed and materialism, and you're harnessing the light, powers from the sun, powers from the stars, to give you more power, to give you more riches, to give you more land and abundance. It's about materialism and greed. So some of them harness the light to make themselves more powerful. Some harness the light for the good of the collective consciousness. Some harness the light just for the good of their own yogi experience and their own clan. Right? It's all different ways of harnessing the light of the universe. Choosing not to realize that you're a walking antenna and connected to the cosmos is also a choice in itself as well. Thank you all for joining me. You can find me at themysticalspiralstore.com. themysticalspiral.com, and the best Patreon on the planet, patreon.com/themysticalspiral. You could support me and get the most incredible information for as low as $2 a month on my Patreon. Check it out and spiral out.